Hey everybody, welcome to your readings for the week. These are the readings for the week ending February 11th, so our first official full week of February, which is going to go by like lightning because it's such a short month. We're going to actually kick off this week with a little bit of a bang here because we got a lot of stuff going on, especially with the moon's movement, at least the way that the moon is moving. Good news is we have no retrograde at all, like none. And we actually get a few months of no retrogrades. And it's a really good thing because it basically means that all the planets are moving forward. So there's nothing that's necessarily reflecting back at us, or I wouldn't say there's nothing that's making us learn because that's not true, but it doesn't seem like it's such a struggle to move forward. I think if that makes sense, when everything is sort of moving in a forward motion, it's kind of nice. We're going to go ahead though, and we're going to get to these readings because we've got, pardon me, we've got all kinds of stuff here going on. So we're going to start with Darcy. And we're looking at really one of the last T-squares of for a while, which is good. Unfortunately, the sun is squared with Uranus this week and will be squared with Uranus all week long. At the beginning of the week, the moon in Leo makes this a much bigger challenge. So it starts off really big and then it gets a little bit smaller throughout the week, which is good. Taurus really is focused on inner trauma, specifically because Uranus's focus is on inner trauma. And this is actually kind of interesting. Uranus is Aquarius's ruling planet. So, any Aquarians, we're all ass backwards, so to speak. And Uranus's sort of energy feels like that to people who aren't on that same level. It does feel kind of ass backwards. It feels like um you're making crazy decisions, things that you wouldn't normally do. For instance, you need some extra money, you need to go work for it, or you can go to the casino and get it, kind of a thing. Not to say that you should do that because it is kind of a risk. But that's what Uranus is. It's about taking risks, and it's about doing things in a non-traditional way, really looking at it in an out of the box way. Squared with the sun is all about career. Right now we're very much focused on career. This could find you coming up with some triggers of some emotional pain around certain individuals at work, which is really difficult. That's like the worst place to have to deal with triggers, is at work. It's you not obviously don't want to be doing that. When the moon is, of course, also squared with Uranus at the very beginning of the week, this becomes a T-square. And the moon's focus is really right on the cusp of how you think about things, but also on the cusp of the home. So it creates this sort of being pulled in two different directions feeling. And that gets really overwhelming, emotionally overwhelming, when you feel like everybody else needs you and nobody's giving you an opportunity to really deal with your own needs, if that makes sense. So it's intensified like right as we kick off the week, and then, like I said, it kind of slows down a little bit, so you don't have that feeling of being pulled in multiple different directions so much after Sunday. But you will still feel this sort of intensity that's taking place at work and these triggers coming up. Now, thing about triggers is really important, and I feel like Uranus is out of the box sort of a focus, is really focused on how you deal with your triggers, not preventing your triggers. There's no way to prevent your triggers, but you absolutely can work through them, and that's really what gives you power over whether or not that trigger rules you or you rule the trigger, kind of a thing. I like to be by myself when I'm working through a trigger, which is not always easy. And sometimes I like to take my time. Some triggers are pretty easy. If you can't work on it right then and there, or you can't do it by yourself, put it aside till later and bring it back up later. That's really the key, is that you can always put off dealing with your triggers until later. But you have to bring them back up later. Otherwise, they're going to keep coming up. So you can do that if you can't deal with it in the moment. For me, it's really easy for us to want to point the finger and in an accusatory way at who caused this emotional disturbance for us in the past. That really doesn't matter. What matters is what you're going to do about it now. So if this is a child thing, I'm big on inner child meditation and meeting with your inner child during meditation to give the child what it needs. If it needs comfort, if it needs somebody to listen, if she needs just some candy, whatever, whatever. Just taking a few minutes to kind of meditate and visualize her in a way to give her what she needs does help with that. It also helps you to identify why she's upset. So, for instance, if we're talking about a trigger around somebody who seems to be very controlling, when you do your inner child meditation, you will actually be listening for her to tell you why it's difficult for her to deal with somebody who she was dealing with that was also very controlling. And it's that feeling that may be different, completely different from how you view it as an adult, but as a child, that feeling still sticks in us. And it gives you an opportunity to comfort her, to listen to her. That's really important. A lot of us weren't listened to as children. To maybe even explain to her what really was going on, or that it wasn't her fault, or that she didn't actually make a mistake even though somebody said that she did, kind of a thing. And it helps to heal her heart, and it helps to heal your heart at the same time. So if you can take some time this week to do that, I think that would be really helpful and give you a different perspective and a different way to deal with this person, rather than just feeling resentment, because I feel that that's a lot of what's coming up with that. So that's what I have for you, Darcy. And I'm going to move on over to my pal, Jeannette. We continue to have Mars in Gemini, and we will for another month and a half or so, and then he's finally kicking rocks and leaving. And not to say good riddance to him. You're one of those Geminis that I refer to in the horoscopes, or just having so much energy. And when you add energy like Mars is doing, it's just a constant burnout, because it's not like you need any more energy. You already have so much. To add more just sort of, it's kind of overkill, if that makes sense. Mars is square with Venus. Venus' focus is right on the cusp of your career and your support system. So that's a little bit difficult, especially with Mars focus being on self. So I do see those issues coming up for you this week. I think those issues have been sort of coming and going a lot recently, if that makes sense. It's definitely rearing its ugly head again this week. The good news is Mars trine with the sun looks favorably in terms of money making and career. So there could be some opportunities, career opportunities that may be coming up for you, some ideas that may be coming up for you also. And Mars square with Jupiter. Jupiter is all about expansion. I kind of look at it this way. When you're feeling like you don't have a lot of support, you do. I mean, you have a massive support system. You just maybe feeling like you're not getting it from a specific direction. But if you broaden it out and look, you've got support all over the planet, basically. Maybe not all over the planet, but definitely in various different parts of the country. So you can reach out for support. in many different places. We'll just put it that way. Especially if you need somebody to kind of bounce ideas off, if that makes sense. The only other thing, and actually that's not even coming up this week either, the moon is really not in a position where it's going to be a challenge for you, except for Tuesday when it moves into Virgo and it moves into a T-square with Mars and Venus. So this makes this sort of feeling like you don't have support challenge much bigger. Unfortunately, the moon's focus is very much on the home. To me, this is always a typical thing that a lot of women go through, where they have to go earn the bacon, and then they have to come home and fry it up, and they basically, you just feel pulled between two different places, if that makes sense. You have to go out and work, but you'd rather be at home taking care of your family, kind of a thing. To me, this plays out for you I kind of feel like part of this challenge is sort of bringing up to the surface your tendency to be mentally in way too many places at once. So you wish you were with your grandchildren, you wish you were over here at this party that your friend is having still in California, you wish you were working. There's just all these different things, and I think that sort of gets overwhelming and is also distracting you from what needs to get done. And it's very easy for a Gemini to get distracted around the things that they have to do. So it's really important for you. I feel that this is sort of coming to a head at this time to show you that you need to let go of being mentally in 10 different places at a time and simply focus on what you need to get focused on. And I mean, yes, sometimes it's not fun and we procrastinate because we just don't want to deal with it. I get that. We all do it. It's still stupid. We shouldn't be doing it because we're only hurting ourselves, really. So that's what I have for you. And I am going to move on to Connie. So we're gonna kick off the week with the moon, because yay. And of course it's going to move into opposition with the sun and Saturn, as well as moving in a square with Uranus. That makes a T-square. It's a pretty big challenge, but the last one for a while. I'm not saying the last one, but it's the last one with these planet makeups for a while. Yes, it's going to continue to move into square with Uranus. Uranus isn't going anywhere, but Aquarius is clearing out. And so we won't have that guarantee over and over again. It's still going to come up, but not quite as often. We're not having this monthly thing quite as much anymore, which is good. Unfortunately, the moon means a bit of an emotional challenge, and it's really difficult when you start off the week like that. Of course, everybody takes turns starting off the week like that. Nobody gets away with never having it. Focus is on the home. The sun and Saturn's focus is on career. Uranus's focus is on our trauma self. So this means triggers. To me, this plays out in a typical, or sort of brings up a very typical family situation where there are triggers, and it's like the hamster wheel, and you're at home, or we're on the merry-go-round, and the one thing, and then you get stuck on the merry-go-round going through all the different reasons why they're bastards, for lack of a better way of saying it, basically. Let me just say that you have control over whether that takes all day or whether that takes a couple of hours of your day. it's going to happen. We can't stop it from happening. We haven't been able to find a solution to stop it from happening, because there is no solution to stop it from happening. It is all about how you handle your triggers more than anything else. And I feel like most people don't like that answer. They don't, that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear, my feelings are justified and people should change. And it's just so unrealistic that I don't know why we get stuck there, if that makes sense. So first things first, you get to choose how long that takes, whether there is a time limit or whether it lasts all day or it moves on into the rest of the week. Because yes, we do continue to have the moon in your sign for about half the day on Monday, still in opposition with Saturn. So we're looking at, if that does move into, if you don't have a time limit, it moves into the next day, and then it gets in the way of your ability to really focus on your job. And that's definitely not something that we want to do. The good news is, as the moon moves on out of there, she moves into a trine with Pluto. Pluto is very much focused on your long-term goals. This gives you some time to sit down and really focus on what your long-term goals are, or to create long-term goals, or decide if you want to create long-term goals, which I think is always a good idea. I mean, you're in finances. You got to create financial goals for yourself if you want your money to do something. You know that. Same difference, in terms of career goals, personal goals, any kind of goals, really. It's a means that's in front of you that you're working towards to finish something, which for a lot of us who don't finish things, that's a big deal, right? It gives us the opportunity to be one of those people that get things done, right? And track our progress and all of those other good things, if that makes sense. Once we get past about mid-Monday, the moon is gone and no longer plaguing you again. We do continue to focus on home, and the Lilith is moving into Taurus. It's not quite there at the beginning of the week, but as we get to midweek, it moves in there. Again, the Lilith is all about change, making major changes. I don't see you necessarily making tons of changes in the home necessarily. I mean, there are elements of cleaning things out. We have discussed, there are elements of organization and various different things, which is good. I feel that this is less about changes in the house and more about just continuing to focus your energy on the improvements that you want to make, if that makes sense. And that energy, that Lilith energy, sort of helps you. Be open, though, to changing your mind. Actually, you may have a vision for something, and once you see it done a different way, you may think you're stuck on one thing and then completely change your mind, and it's okay. It turns out that may be the thing that's going to work better than what your original idea was, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you. And I'm going to get some water. And I'm going to move on to Jenny. Hi, Jenny. We're going to kick off this week with the moon in Leo because, I mean, why not? Luckily, it's Sunday, not necessarily Monday, although there is an element of the moon still being there Monday morning a little bit and still causing a little bit of a problem. It's not the whole day. We got enough problems to deal with Sunday, of course, because the moon's going to move into opposition with the sun and Saturn, which are continue to be in Aquarius, and next month nothing will be in Aquarius, so we won't be having this major aspect happening with the moon coming into Leo anymore, which is really nice. And also Uranus. Now we're still going to have that square with Uranus because Uranus isn't going anywhere. It's in Taurus, it's 15 degrees, it's right in the middle. It takes 7 years. We've only gone through half of that. So that is still going to be there, but it just won't be as big of a challenge as this is. The moon's focus is very much on the home. Uranus's focus is on our trauma closet. So this means triggers coming up. And the sun and Saturn are focused on career. There's a couple of things that come out of this. One, this is Sunday. And I feel like work is infiltrating your home time. That's how I see that playing out for you. And it's a trigger because you sort of go to that place where it's like, do you not even see a problem with bothering somebody on a Sunday when you could call on Monday? Right? It's a lack of common sense, and it's a lack of common decency. It's a lack of things that unfortunately are things that in many cases did exist in this world that just don't these days. And it just feels like people don't even care. They just don't even care if they're offending you. They don't care if they're bothering you. They don't care. It's your job to drop everything for them whenever they want. And I really feel this is just very emotionally frustrating. Like, I don't see you having a breakdown, an emotional breakdown. I see you just being pissed off. Of course, there's a way to fix that, which is to not answer your phone, let it go to voicemail, turn the damn thing off if they keep repeatedly calling, what have you, and call them on Monday. I feel this might even be a person who you answered the call once or twice on a Sunday and explain to them that, you'll take care of this today, but Sunday is your day off, and, blah, blah, blah. And they just, they keep doing it, which means they don't care if it inconveniences you. So you have to do it a different way. That's all there is to it. Or you have to accept that it is what it is and that they're going to do this. It's not the best option, but it's the options that you have, if that makes sense. As we get into Monday morning, the moon continues to be in opposition with Saturn. So again, we feel that little bit of somebody calling you out on your responsibilities, if that makes sense. I don't feel, and I really feel that the world is going to this place right now, and this may be neither here nor there, but I don't feel that it's okay for us to just accept that people are irresponsible. But I also feel that in many ways in business, we're sort of kind of expected to deal with people being irresponsible and just lump it if we don't like it. And I don't care for that. It's that fear that we're going to lose the client if we don't kiss their butt exactly how they like it. And I think that fear really is the root of why you are picking up the phone on a Sunday when they should just be kind of leaving you alone, if that makes sense. So once the moon leaves your sign Monday afternoon, things will calm down. I mean, they're still going to be crazy because it's that time of year, but they won't be quite so emotionally frustrating, I guess, or at least there isn't something that's going to amplify that, like the moon being in your sign. And the only good thing about the moon being in your sign right at the beginning of the week is that you get the crap over with, and then it's kind of smooth sailing from there on out. One last thing that I am picking up for you guys, or for you, pardon me. I see cake. I don't know why. So I feel like there's a celebration somewhere in there, and I'm not exactly sure if it's a celebration for you or somebody else, but it is a few hours to focus on something else, something happy, celebrating something, whether it's you or somebody else. And it makes all the difference when you have to come back and refocus on what you have to refocus on, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you. And I am going to move on to Linda. We have the moon moving into Virgo Monday afternoon. And you will feel the moon's opposition with Saturn as she's moving into Virgo Monday afternoon. Focus for Virgo is on those you love. The moon brings an influence of home into that, responsibilities of home. Saturn is all about your responsibilities to work. I feel like that day you may find yourself sort of feeling like you have to be in both places at the same time. So I don't know if there's a lot of doctor appointments that day, or you're struggling between work appointments and doctor appointments. There is some elements of kind of feeling like you're being pulled in different directions, which is really annoying. As we move into Tuesday, the moon moves into opposition with Venus. Again, we're still focused on the home and those you love to a certain extent. Venus is focused right on the cusp of your career and your support system. And I again feel this playing out in such a way to where your focus really needs to be home right now and not necessarily on your career. And in terms of work and responsibilities, it's almost impossible to find somebody that can take over for you while you focus your time on what needs to be focused on at home. The moon's trine with Uranus, however, is sort of helpful, because in some cases this is one of those perfect opportunities for a lot of triggers to come up around not being supported in the past, around people saying they're going to do things and then not following through. All of these really annoying human foibles that you would love to eradicate seem to be coming up. Uranus is very much one of those influences that is out of the box. He's a risk taker, he's a rebel. There is no tried and true. There is try everything and figure out which one works best. And so I feel like when you're looking for support, you should be looking in a different place than you normally would be. So you might actually want to look at somebody that you never would have thought possible. Honestly, that's what I'm getting from that. As we get into Wednesday, the moon continues her opposition with Venus, but also adds an opposition with Neptune. So again, we're looking at that not having support, and focus is on those that you love, very much so on this day. So you may find yourself in this place where you're not getting support at home, you're not getting support at work. Basically wherever you look, there is no support, and that is a really difficult place to be. Don't panic, because I'm being told to tell you two things. One, your responsibilities at work are your responsibilities at work. Obviously, you have a responsibility towards making money. That makes sense, perfect sense. You're not going to lose that income because you have to focus on your family. And that's an old fear that unfortunately needs to go. The other thing that I feel is coming up with that is, if you leave somebody in charge and you're not 100%, you don't have faith in whether this person is going to succeed or not. Maybe you've left somebody in charge that you've never left in charge before, and because of that, it's really scary. The point is, you have to let that control go. This is a control issue, not a whether or not they're going to do a good job issue, period. So you will have to let that control go, and it's not going to be pleasant, and it's not going to be easy for you to do, but I know that you can. So few days, very difficult. That moon is really coming in and just making things difficult. But for a couple of days, and then things will calm down, And all the craziness that you felt in the middle of all of that won't seem quite so bad, if that makes sense. And that person that you put in charge might actually have done a better job than you think. So that's good too. So that's what I have for you. And I'm moving on to my little Maddie. I keep calling you little, but I know you're not little, but you're still little. And when I close my eyes, I see that little girl with all the long hair. I'm sorry. It's always going to be like that. And you just have to deal with it. That's all there is to it. Focus is on those you love this week, although the moon is going to come in and be a bit challenging this week. Actually, it's like 2.5 days of challenges. So the more you know, the better prepared you can be. That's always a good thing, right? We'll start with Monday about midday. So between 12 and 1, the moon is going to move into Virgo in opposition with Saturn. The moon's focus is on the home. Saturn's focus is on work, career, legacy. So this could be school also. It could be your own plans for your own self-improvement, and something comes up at home and says, we need you here, kind of a thing. And it creates a struggle between what you already have planned versus what somebody else needs, kind of a thing. And Virgos can very easily, sort of funny really when you think about it, because everybody looks at Virgos as being egotistical, but Virgos actually really fall into self-sacrifice very easily without realizing that they're doing that. And I feel like that ego that they talk about with Virgos really is a way to cover up how they've let themselves down in some way. So usually those egos get worse and worse and worse as you get older, because you have so much more to cover up. When you see young Virgos who have a lot of ego like that, they're covering up a lot of things that they feel is wrong with them, because perfection is a big deal to Virgos. And that's, of course, something you're never going to get to. Not to be mean or anything like that, but it's true. We're humans. We're not here to be perfect. We're here to learn, and we're here to evolve, and we're here to grow. And if we're perfect, we're not doing any of those things. So as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, the moon moves into opposition with Venus and Neptune, both in Pisces, both of which are focused on your support system. And the moon's focus moves into focus on those you love also. So this is actually kind of interesting how I see this playing out. It's like it starts off with, you have plans to do something for you. Somebody needs something at home. You stop what you're doing to take care of your responsibilities to your family, like the dutiful daughter and granddaughter that you are. And the following day, when you need help, it's like nobody's there to help you. And it's really frustrating when it happens. And it's not necessarily because they don't care. We all know that that's not true. It's not that they don't care. It's that they're not available. And the issue is that eventually this creates this sort of feeling and the story that you tell yourself about how whenever anybody else needs something, you're always there for them. But whenever you need something, they're never there for you. And what we're not thinking of in the moment is all the times they were there for us, and all the times we couldn't be there for them. And so we're looking at it dishonestly. So I really feel that this lesson for you is to put this in the right perspective. And sometimes the people that support us can't always be there for us. Sometimes we find out that the people that we support are never there for us. And all of these instances happen because it's teaching us something. But the biggest thing is that sometimes when we need support and nobody else is there, it's because nobody is supposed to be there. This is your lesson, and it is up to you to do it. And just because we don't want to do it by ourselves doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. It means, okay, great. You don't want to do it by yourself. Well, the universe is like, okay, you don't want to do it by yourself. That's fine. You don't have any other option though. Because it just is what it is. If I had a dime for every time I found myself in that situation, I'd have a shitload of dimes. Okay. It's part of life. And we always reach for somebody, but really we're just avoiding the work that we need to do. So annoying. But the moon leaves. And then once the moon leaves, things calm down again and it's business as usual again. So it's just a couple of days of irritation. And then you move on to fun time in Maddieland or whatever it is that you're doing. So that's what I have for you, my dear. And I'm going to pause really quick because I think somebody's here. I'm going to check. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to move on to Theresa, my friend Theresa, specifically Theresa Demarco. I have a couple of Theresas on this list here. Focus is on your daily schedule, although we have an element of those you love coming into that focus, specifically on Thursday and Friday when the moon comes into your sign. Also, Ceres is very much in that that sort of focus place as well, or bringing that focus of those you love into the mix. And Ceres is retrograde. Now, this actually creates a very interesting situation because Ceres is known as the Great Mother. It's all about nurturing. It's all about mothering in some way. When you retrograde that, it sort of puts you in a situation where it feels like you're mothering everybody and nobody's mothering you, if that makes sense. And, you know, a lot of times we feel like that with our parents when they get older. We feel like that with our kids when they get older, even though they're supposed to be mothering us a little bit more, maybe. There's a lot of times where we find ourselves feeling like that. And the moon really is going to intensify this feeling when it comes in on Thursday, specifically when it moves into opposition with Jupiter. And then Friday, as it continues that opposition with Jupiter as well. Jupiter is focused on those that support you. So this sort of brings up one of those instances where you're looking for support amongst all the people that you normally support, and it just feels like they're not available or they have more important things to do. And it really feels crappy, honestly, when this happens. It really feels crappy, and it's really hard for me to, you know, look at it logically. Like, they're unavailable to help me right now. They're unavailable to be supportive for whatever reason. They all have things that they need to do, which is not necessarily them just saying, I hate you and I don't want to support you, but that's how it feels. And so I feel like this week, this is definitely something that's going to come up, but it's an opportunity for you to really look at it for what it is rather than what your feelings want to make it out to be, if that makes sense. The moon is in a trine with Mars, as well as the sun and Saturn for both of those days also, which is a good thing. Mars's focus is on self. The sun and Saturn's focus is on career. We're talking specifically your responsibilities to your career. And while you feel like you don't have support, it's also showing you that there are plenty of those people that you love and support that are supporting you towards those specific goals. Normally, they just can't be there to support you right in this moment, if that makes sense. And it's always difficult, but the more you can see that maybe you're overreacting, the easier it is to kind of let go of that negative energy a little bit, so it's not so overpowering, I guess, if that makes sense. The rest of the week is really a lot easier because without the moon's influence, that sort of need to be nurtured is still there. So I feel like it's really important to tell you when you feel that need to be nurtured and you're just not getting that nurturing from other sources, maybe it's time you turned your own nurturing onto yourself. Maybe it's time you did for you what you always do for everybody else, which may actually be very helpful for you. It takes you out of that space of needing that from somebody else because you can provide it for yourself. So that's what I have for you. And I'm going to move on to Regina. Focus continues to be on your day-to-day schedule this week. Things are pretty smooth sailing in that department pretty much all week, actually. In fact, I'm picking up on it's running so smoothly that it's weird and maybe even a little bit uncomfortable. Like you're normally waiting for something to come screw it up, but it's not, if that makes sense. Well, don't worry. We're ending the week with the moon in Scorpio. So something's gonna come along and shake things up anyways. You might as well enjoy the calm before the storm throughout the week. The moon does move into your sign on Saturday. So we're going to end the week. We're going to begin next week with this moon influence. Unfortunately, we're looking at a square between Pluto and Mercury as the moon moves into square with those planets. Their focus is on long-term goals. And I feel like with the trine the moon has with the sun and Saturn, which is favoring business right now, it feels like work is taking up all of your time and you really just don't have a lot of time to focus on your own goals, your own thing. And that can be really frustrating. At the same time, more work means more money. So, there's good points to it and there's bad points to it. But I actually want to bring up another way of looking at this. I am a big, I don't have time person. I use those words every single day of my life. To my own detriment, I think, in many ways. And the truth of the matter is when we say we don't have time for anything, that's never true. It seems like we have no time. We work many hours, but the hours we're not working and we're not sleeping and we're not eating, what are we doing with them? How constructively are we using that time? Are we wasting it? Is it really, are we really busy? I mean, a lot of times when I say I don't have time for something, it's because I don't want to take up my time with that. And whether that's good for me or bad for me or right, wrong, or indifferent really does not matter. Okay. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to take up my time with this, or I don't want to shorten my time, even if this is important. And unfortunately, that means I don't move forward very often because I don't want to take up my time. The more I think about it, the worse it is. When all of a sudden I'm presented with something that's going to take up a ridiculous amount of time in my schedule, but it's important to me right away, you bet I can commit to it, no problem. But if I'm on the fence with it, I don't know if I have time. It's not that you don't have any time to work on your long-term goals. I will tell you that it's either one, you don't know what your long-term goals are, two, you don't know what to do to achieve your long-term goals, or three, you may not believe that you can achieve these goals at all, period. And therefore, what's the point of putting the time into it? It's always something else. So I feel like the moon is coming in and creating this challenge for you to be able to sit down and identify why are you creating this excuse? Basically, when it comes down to it, why are you creating the excuse? What's the purpose of the excuse? What are you trying to avoid? When you understand that, it makes it easier for you to make the time or to continue using the excuse. It's entirely up to you. So that's what I have for you, Regina. And I'm going to move on to Theresa Sheppard. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule this week. There's no Mercury retrograde. In fact, there's no retrogrades, period. All planets are moving forward, which is a nice sort of everything is moving forward feeling, which is good. No planets in Scorpio until Saturday. We're going to end the moon, or I'm sorry, we're going to end the week with the moon moving into Scorpio. And while the moon does move into a trine with Saturn and the sun, which is very favorable towards having time, towards making money, towards working, the moon also moves into a square with Pluto and Mercury, which is focused on long-term goals. So you a lot of time working and making money, maybe not quite so much time focused on your long-term goals. And I'm not saying you need to make time either, but what I am saying is you do want to avoid the thought process of I need a whole day to do this, or I need a whole week to do this. Not necessarily saying that you are doing that, but it does take sometimes 5 minutes a day just to focus your time on where you want to go, if that makes sense. You spend a lot of time focused on what you need to do today. Even 5-10 minutes a day, no matter where you are, if everything is on your laptop or your phone, you're taking your plans with you. 5 to 10 minutes a day really is all you need to be able to work on your goals, come up with your goals, check in with your goals, make sure you're on the right track with your goals, make a few phone calls in case you need to do that, etc., etc., etc. You do kind of have a crazy life and a crazy schedule, and it is difficult, but it's not impossible. And I know you know that because, well, I just know you know that. I know you, right? So I feel like there's been a couple of things that you put on the back burner just because you don't have time. And I feel like the moon coming into this sort of situation for you is basically going to blow that phrase, I don't have time, right out of the water, because it's going to say, if it's important, you just have to make the time. And when it's important and when we're faced with that situation, we always do. And that's what it comes down to. So that's what I have for you this week. And we're moving on to Sheri, my friend Sheri. Focus is on relationships this week. No planets in Sagittarius this week at all. Moon makes it to just the tip of Scorpio and then stops. So we'll deal with that moon stuff next week. And trust me, we will be dealing with that moon stuff next week. It's going to be a little bit interesting, which means this week, let's make it not so interesting. Couple of things coming up for you. First thing that I am seeing for you is I feel like, okay, well, your mom's coming in and she's saying if you want your relationships to be a certain way, you have to be the one to do the work to make that happen. Number one, not saying that you aren't, but well, let me put it this way. You could put all the responsibility on Matt for taking you out for date night, or you could show up wherever he is with a picnic and have date night on the front lawn of your brother's house. You know what I mean? There's a way that we can either put that on the responsibility on somebody else, or we can take responsibility. Oh, it's just a little bit of an example. And I feel like this isn't really about your relationship with Matt either. I feel like in some cases, this is about your relationship with yourself. This is about your relationship with everybody around you. And I think we all go through those instances where we kind of take a look to see if we're improving those relationships or if we're harming those relationships. If that makes sense. The big thing is the justification, the word justify really has to not be in this conversation with yourself, if that makes sense. Because when you're justifying something, you're just putting it in words that make it okay. So for instance, if you procrastinate about getting your taxes done, your justification is, I don't really have time, which is a bullshit excuse anyways for most of us, because I'm doing this and this and this. So you're justifying not taking care of your responsibilities by coming up with an excuse as to why somebody else is responsible for you not taking care of your responsibilities. I do it every single day of my life, and I know you do it because we've been together for a really long time. So I feel like this week is really kind of bringing up some opportunities for you to look that in the face a little bit. It comes down to two things. It really comes down to one thing. Are you going to do it or are you not going to do it? Period. And I see an idea that's bouncing around in your head that's an awful lot like going to school. Not that I'm judging, okay? But it's an awful lot like going to school. It can stay and bounce around in your head, but it's not going to do you any good unless you do something about it, unless you become proactive with it. And if you come up with excuses why it's not a good time, you're justifying it, and that's not helping the situation. The other thing that I see coming up for you this week is I sort of feel like there's going to be something coming up in terms of a disagreement with somebody. And I don't think it's Matt, but I do see a male. Could be your dad, could be one of your brothers, something like that. I don't think this is your argument. I don't think you have anything to do with it. And I really, really, really think that the best thing that you can do is to stay out of it. If you don't, you're going to wish you had. That's all I have to say about that. Okay. More trouble than it's worth. I think we talked about this a few days ago, where you did just that. And you said, no, this is between you and him. You guys deal with it. I'm not going to do it. This is another one of those instances where you have to keep doing that. Even though there's a part of you that's saying, well, if I do it, it will smooth it out and it'll make it easier. No, it won't. Okay. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And that's what I have for you. And I'm moving on to Peg. We have no planets in Sagittarius this week. I do have some static electricity in my hair, which is driving me insane though. Hopefully you don't have that problem yourself. Focus is on relationships this week, and I kind of feel that playing out for you in a couple of different ways. One, I keep getting the word client, like there's a client, almost like you're questioning the relationship with this client in some way, if that makes sense. Maybe on the fence, going back and forth. But there's a big push, I feel, for you to, I want to say, to let this client move on. And it's not necessarily because you're not helping them or you're no good at what you do. That's definitely not true. Sometimes you work with somebody for a long time and you've done all you can for that person. And it is time for you to release them, whether they want to be released or not. It's time for you to release them to somebody else. And this was always really hard I don't want to say it was always really hard for me, but it has been hard for me off and on in the past. The years where Sheri and I worked together was difficult for both of us when somebody preferred working with me over her or her over me. You kind of want to get offended, and then I have to realize, her personality, my personality are very different, and it's just a comfort thing. I don't see this in particular with you. I just feel that this client is a heavy weight, and that's why they need to be released for you. But I think it's in their best interest that you release them also, just because the relationship that you have found yourself in with them now is just not working as well as it should be. The other thing that I'm picking up for you is kind of weird. I see a cat. I don't know if you have any animals, but I see a cat, and it's like a little gray tabby cat, or like the white with the gray tabby pieces or what have you. There's something important about this cat, and I don't know if it's just a stray cat that you found outside or if this is your cat, but it's going to take up some focus this week, and not necessarily in a bad way. I feel like I almost feel like you need to focus your energy on something, and this is what presents itself for you to focus your energy on. So either the cat needs assistance or needs something, is up with this cat. It's not a horrible thing, but it's more like you need something else to focus your energy on, and this is what presents itself, kind of a thing. So that's what I have for you this week. And I'm going to move on to Mama Sheri. Drink some water. No planets in Sagittarius this week. Focus is on relationships. Two things that I'm being shown with that. One is I feel like you're actually working on I don't know the words to say this. It's almost like I feel that you're reworking the relationship that you have with your clients, if that makes sense. So we knew what happened in the past, and we want to avoid that, and so we're sort of reworking how you approach your clients, the closeness that you allow to your clients, things like that. I want to say that it's very easy for us to avoid being close, and so to go to the other end of the teeter-totter, the extreme of untouchable kind of a thing, where you have the wall in front of you. And I don't think that you really want to do that necessarily. Somewhere in the middle. So just remember that teeter-totter that you always told me that you always want to balance in the middle. The other thing is boundaries are a big word for you this week. And there may be somebody around you that is either dancing on your boundary, or you need to lay stronger boundaries around them. I kind of get the feeling that this person, it's like they're testing you. It's really annoying, actually. It's like, the feeling that I get is literally my dad. In fact, he's here right now, where you would lay boundaries, and he would purposely push those buttons to see how you would react. And it's because of this that you really have to be consistent with how you react to the situation, so that they always know that the same reaction is going to happen. You are not going to bend on those boundaries. And this could be a client, but it could be a friend, or it could be a family member, to be honest with you, That's also a possibility. But it feels like somebody who routinely tests the boundaries that you've laid down with them. And I'm literally just seeing you get furiously angry because they're just not getting it. The truth is that they don't want to get it. They want what they want, and they're going to keep trying until they realize that you are serious, even if that takes the next 50 years. So be consistent. Now you probably want to sock them in the head because this is so frustrating, but that's probably not a good idea either. Just keep being consistent, keep repeating yourself, keep on track with your boundaries, and you have control over them, and don't let them take control. And that's what I have for you. And that's what I have for everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. I will see you guys next week. And in the meantime, make this a great week, everybody. I will see you next week.